I hope everybody out there is having a good holiday season. Penn and Teller are getting ready to do our big holiday shows at the Rio. And today we're talking with Tim Jenison. I don't know if you remember, he did this great movie called Tim's Vermeer. He started an amazing, huge tech company called New Tech. He's really kind of a genius, I guess is a good word to describe him. He really has so many things going at all times. I didn't even get a chance to talk with him about his wildlife preserve that he's running, but he's busy building an analog recording studio, and it sounds like it's going to be really great. So I hope you enjoy listening to Tim Jenison. This week on the Stereo Image, we're lucky enough to have the great Tim Jenison joining us. He's an incredible business owner, entrepreneur, inventor, musician, artist, Renaissance man, man about town, fashion plate. There's really so many adjectives I could use. But thanks for coming on, Tim. I really appreciate it. This is going to be fun. Here. Well,
it was good to see you in New York a couple of weeks ago. That was great.
Yeah, it was really great. And it was a little hectic. It was kind of a whirlwind trip. We got in Tuesday night, ran around all day Wednesday. When I went to the sound check Thursday and then had the show Thursday, saw you Thursday night, left Friday morning.
Wow.
But it was a lot of fun. And, you know, it's quite an accomplishment. I mean, I've been with them 23 years. So half the time they've been performing as Penn and Teller.
Where has the time gone?
I know. It's insane. I realize that I've spent the entire 21st century in Las Vegas so far.
Amazing.
So you're one of the first people I met through Penn back in 2000, something like that. And I knew of you through your video toaster reputation. And we bonded over our love of Monty Alexander and piano players. And you're right now. I want to sort of jump right in because I know that you talk probably way more than you not care to, but you're always talking about your new tech and lightwave and all those things that are important and great. But I want to talk about you're building a studio and your love of music and your being in a band and all the stuff that, the stuff that this is about what people listen to and the kind of music that they love. And you're in a really unique position because you're putting together this incredible analog space that harkens back to the music that you love.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I've been collecting this old gear since, I was about that tall. One of the first things I collected was an old Shure 55 microphone. I was totally into tape recorders and disc recorders. I had a disc cutting machine when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
But the first real collectible I had was that Shure 55, the Elvis microphone, the giant bird.
Oh,
thing. Yeah. Still got that one.
Wow.
But over the years, I've, like a Rolling Stone gathering a lot of moss, a lot of this old gear. Most of it vacuum tube, some of it transistorized. And, there is a sound that you get from that analog gear that is different. Not necessarily better. People are now like LPs are the greatest.
Right.
Well, LPs, they have a sound, and it's not great.
Right.
If you look at it on a scope, there's problems, but it's kind of just part of the style of the time. And so that my studio is going to kind of cater to people that have that we wish to get that sound, and a fetish, I guess, to get that sound. Kramer, our mutual friend Kramer, is an independent producer, and And he came out to mix an LP on one of my earliest versions of the studio. And I had this Bill Putnam 610 mixing console, very storied console. And it doesn't have sliders, it's got these big black knobs that you turn. And Kramer's going, dude, I've never been able to get this sound. This is amazing. Wow. And then about 20 minutes into it, he goes, what's wrong with this one? It's making a scratching sound. I said, yes, it's interesting. He said, is it a dirty pot?
Right.
And I said, no, I think it's probably a bad capacitor. And I took my screwdriver and started to remove the channel strip. And he said, what, are you going to open that thing? I said, well, yeah, you want to keep mixing because I'm going to fix it. He said, don't you need a technician? I said, I are a technician. I'll have you going shortly. And so, yeah, in about 20 minutes, we were back online.
Wow.
And, that's just part of the charm, part of the fun.
Right. And is that the board you got from LA?
Yeah, well, it came out of Western Recorders, Sunset Boulevard, which is still there in some fashion. I think it's called East West now. It's at it's like 6,000 Sunset. And this was a board in Studio 2, and it's the list of recordings that were made on this particular board it's an endless stream, starting from Frank Sinatra to a lot of TV theme songs. Beach Boys recorded on it. A lot of people recorded on it. And Bill Putnam only made about 20 of these things, and they're all different. They all look different. They kind of resemble each other, but each one is different. So this particular one is a 14-channel input and 3-channel output. Okay. So back in the day, they recorded on 3 tracks. So you had left and right were usually the musical part, and then the vocalist would come into the 3rd track, and they would add the vocalist later. Right. Sometimes they record them simultaneously, and Frank Sinatra liked to work that way. Have the band playing while he was singing. Sure. But yeah, and then in addition to the mixer, of course, the microphones are crucial, even with people recording on Pro Tools, or straight in the box, as they say. You want those old, mostly German microphones with vacuum tubes in them, the U47s and the ilk. They have just a very, very distinctive sound.
They do. Oh no, I was just going to say, everyone labels them warm, but that's not really the case. It's as you said, it's a different. There's like a more body to the lower mid range that I find that's more fulfilling.
It's really hard to describe, and it depends on the person singing. Whether a particular mic is going to work or not. I don't have a ton of experience doing that. I'm sort of in over my head here. I know a lot of the technical stuff, but as far as people actually sitting and recording, in my misspelled youth, I spent a lot of time in studios, but never as an engineer. And then I would also repair their gear. So that's how I started to focus on the gear. So in addition to microphones, you've got 3 other crucial things for this period sound. You've got the equalizers. So this is, think of them as fancy tone controls, but like bass, treble, mid-range, whatever. And then, you got a lot of other bells and whistles around those. So Pultec equalizers, the EQP1, that's a staple, and they're vacuum tubes. Then you have the compressors, which are really key to the sound. The most famous compressor, if compressors can be famous, is the Fairchild 670. Right. And famous mostly because the Beatles had one. They put all the Beatles recordings through these things while they were transferring to disc. And sometimes during the recording process, they would put drums through them or bass guitar through a compressor like this. They are so, and in the 70s and 80s, when everything was transistorizing, they would just toss these things in the dumpster. And there weren't that many to begin with. So now they're ultra rare. And if you can find one, they're going to be well into the six figures.
Wow. Jeez.
Yep. So then on top of the compressors, you've got the reverb systems, reverb or echo. And there the gold standard is the plate reverb,
right?
Which is this giant wooden box. The plate, there's a steel plate inside. And this plate measures like 4 by 8 feet, not quite that much, but pretty close. And it's just a thin piece of steel. And in one corner or one side, there's a kind of a loudspeaker thing that vibrates the steel. And then out on the other side, there are pickups, kind of like guitar pickups that pick up the vibration of the steel. And strangely enough, if you pump sound into the speaker part, it sounds like you're in a giant room when you listen to the pickups. So EMT was the big company that made those, German company again. So you got to have at least one plate reverb in your vintage studio.
Wow.
And what else? Then it's down to, talent. And it's all about the song and the singer, really. And, people have these gear fetishes, me included. But, somebody like Billie Eilish sells a zillion tunes recording in her bedroom,
Right.
That can be done, but you're not going to get that sound,
Right.
Sound. A lot of this old gear you can emulate in software, but not perfectly. And also you're clicking with a mouse on here and here. And
right. Yep.
There's a little picture of a Fairchild compressor, but in a real studio, with the real gear, you just reach up and start turning knobs, and you can do a lot of things simultaneously and get where you're going faster. The fetish extends in some cases to recording on tape. And my studio has some of these old Ampex tape machines, the 3 tracks, the 4 tracks, 1 track, 2 track, all the way up to 8 tracks. Recording on tape is hard. Compared to, now you're playing a guitar solo, you're doing what they call comping. You're playing the solo over and over again. The, song jumps back to the beginning where your solo starts, you play it again. And then you got 50 of these things stacking up in the computer. And later on, some poor engineer has to figure out how to make one good recording out of that. There's a YouTube video of a guitar player who says, "We're trying out tape recording now, and I'm going to record my guitar solo over tape." And he gets through it. He's starting to play his solo, and he goes, "Oh, I messed up. Start from the top. What's going on? Rewinding? How long is that going to take?" Oh. And the charm is gone.
Well, I mean, I started my quote unquote career right before digital came in. So when I was first working at Soundtrack, it was all editing with a razor blade.
Yeah.
And if you screwed up, luckily they had enough tracks that you could try it again. But when I did an album in, I think it was maybe 1985, and we brought up a Mitsubishi digital recorder that recorded on tape. I think it was like an MX-80 or something. I forget what it was called. And there was none in Boston, so we had to go down to New York and rent one and bring it up to the Boston studio. And then the next thing I think was DATs.
Well, there was ADAT that would record on videotape, which was a real kludge, but it kind of worked. You could get 8 tracks on a standard videotape machine.
And but it happened quickly. I mean, by 1990, I think certainly the early 90s, it was weird for people to still record analog. Yeah. And It was, and I think part of it was money because, as you say, wait a minute, we got to wait for the tape to rewind. When you've got a room, when it's Steve Gadd, Eddie Gomez, George Young, all the hot session players in New York that you're paying triple scale to sit around and wait for you to rewind something every time they want to start a new. As soon as this technology came in, they jumped all over it, and whether or not it sounded is good. And I think, I've got SACDs that I think sound tremendous. And it's just, as you said, it's just a different sound. It's not better or worse, but it also is the sound that we grew up with. I mean,
and threw up with.
Well, you put on an old Riverside LP, and it just washes over you in a way that, many, and again, there was that weird time in the 80s and 90s when even on jazz recordings, the drums were compressed down to this tiny little thing and everything was evened out and it sounds god awful. There's no dynamics. There's no finesse. And, it became the standard sound. And you can't even listen to a piano trio album in the same way from those years, unless you're listening to like somebody like Keith Jarrett, who demanded it sound good, but if you went to a major label and heard like a Ramsey Lewis record, it sounded like it was coming out of your car speaker, Well,
Rudy Van Gelder is famous for recording pianos badly.
Yeah.
Some of the most amazing kind of Blue Note era recordings came out of Van Gelder's studio, which he started in his parents' living room.
Right.
And then sort of branched out and got a studio in New Jersey. I think it's still there.
Oh, it is.
He's long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was this Herbie Hancock recording, one with Cantaloupe Island on it.
Oh, yeah.
And the piano's playing, and you listen closely, and it's like crunchy in the background, and you're hearing the cymbals crunching the piano sound or something.
Yeah,
it's sort of just like a kind of a weird. The closer you look, the weirder it is. But it's part of that sound. I mean, that recording is iconic.
Right.
It's a distortion.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know if I believe the recording would have been iconic had it been recorded better. As well for the musicality, you know what I mean? But it's the same thing with like all those Oscar Peterson verves, they never sounded good, but you get to the MPS stuff, which is a totally different sound and everyone raves about it. And it's an amazing sound. But it's somewhat artificial, the piano sounds really stabby and bright, overly bright. But
some pianos just don't sound good,
Yeah.
And some sound great. I've got this. I don't know if you've ever played my Yamaha C7.
I haven't.
It is. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I got used to it over the years. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's just like the best sounding, best feeling piano.
Right.
I've ever played.
What era is it? Like 70s?
No, it's late 80s. It's a disclavier. Okay. It's got the.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
And well, the reason I got it is because I got to visit the MIT Media Lab.
Right.
And, what was his name? Holly was showing me around his studio, and he had a pair of Bosendorfer Imperials.
Right. I know that. I've seen them.
And in his studio. Did you see that setup that he had?
Yeah.
And he's bragging about it, and I'm asking him some questions, and he's figured out that I know a couple things about pianos or something. He said, "Have you ever? Do you play?" And I said, "Well, I, make an attempt once in a while." And he said, "Have you ever played a Bosendorfer?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, sit down, virgin." And I hit this big chord, with an octave bass,
sure.
And this sound comes rolling at me, and then I started noodling around, playing some faster stuff, and I got back to home in Topeka, Kansas, and I go, man, this is on my bucket list. I'm going to have to own one of these pianos someday. Just one of those crazy wild hairs you get. And so I called the music store in Kansas City, the piano store, Jenkins Music, And I said, hey, do you have the Bosendorfer player piano? And the guy goes, what, in stock? I said, oh, yeah, I've been looking. He said, you know how much they cost, right? We don't carry them. We can get you one.
Right. Sure.
I said, well, what are you quoting on it? He said, well, let's see, without the player system, I think 180,000.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is in the 90s.
Right. Right.
And so I says, what do you got in a Yamaha? He says, well, we got some great Yamahas. And so I went there to the store, and this particular Yamaha, it's like Ahmad Jamal once said, when I walk past a piano, it calls my name. Mm-hmm. And I have to touch it. And this one just like called my name.
Wow.
And I took it home, and it's been a great piano. Eventually, as you know, you and I were talking one day 10, 15 years ago, and you told me, boy, the piano business has dried up. The Piano Center sold one piano last year in Las Vegas.
Right.
And I go, well, good time to shop for a Bosendorfer. And so I started, watching Craigslist and cruising the internet, looking for some yuppie that was downsizing, right?
Right.
And most people buy this piano as a piece of furniture, frankly.
Oh, I had a job, I will tell you, in the mid 80s, I had a job where they would pay me $50 to go to Boston Organ and Piano and play Bosendorfers for people that bought them that didn't know how to play. They were exactly that. They would buy it as a piece of furniture and put it underneath the grand stairway in their house. And so they would pay me $50 to go out and play a few songs for them. And it was great. It was a good gig.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
And you can get it if you try.
Yeah, if you try. But
anyway, so eventually I learned this trick where you can actually search the whole country Craigslist. Craigslist usually just gives you your local area. Right. But there's a trick you can do with the search terms to get the whole country all at once. And I put in Bosendorfer piano site Craigslist.org. And then Google comes up all across the country. Here comes one up that said, Bosendorfer piano. Most Americans say Bosendorfer. It's Bosendorfer.
Bosendorfer, yeah.
So Bosendorfer piano, $50,000, which is cheap,
Very cheap, yes.
And so I go, okay, it's probably a piece of junk. I emailed the guy. And he said, yes, it's for sale. And, you're welcome to come and take a look at it. I said, well, I'm not in the area. This was in Denver. And so do you have any kind of information on it from a technician or whatever? He said, yeah, I have a report from the last technician that worked on it, and I'll send it to you. And the technician said, piano's in pretty good shape, needs a little TLC. There is some refinishing that needs to happen on the lid. It's kind of, checked. But otherwise in good shape. It sounds good. So I wrote back to the guy and I said, gee, I'm interested in these pianos, but that's an awful lot of money. Mm-hmm. Would you consider a lower offer? And he writes back immediately. He says, yes. My real estate agent wants it out of the house. I'm downsizing. My wife told me to get rid of the piano and no ifs, ands, or buts. What an idiot he is to tell me this, right? And so, I don't know, in case he's listening, no, he's a very smart gentleman because he made the sale.
Sure.
I wrote back and I said, well, I was thinking about like maybe half that. Okay, some 20 minutes goes by with nothing. And then he writes back and he says, you do realize what this is. This is the best production piano made. Mm-hmm. There is no way I could let it go for that amount of money, half of that. Uh-huh. And I said, well, I wrote back, I'm sure you'll have no trouble selling it. They're really neat pianos. Have a good day.
Wow.
He writes back, I'll take it. So I'm halfway to my dream. I've never seen the piano.
Right. Oh, by the way, let me just interject at this point. We now know why you are a successful businessman, in addition to being a computer guy. But go ahead.
I'm usually not that good of a dickerer, but you know,
sure.
Just
it's not like you had to have it. You can afford to be a little more, reckless with your.
No, and once you buy it, the hassle really starts.
Right.
It didn't have the player in it, the electronics to play itself, which is what I really wanted, right, from my MIT experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I called up or wrote to Bosendorfer in Vienna, and I said, how much to add the player to the piano? And they go, well, depending, probably, what did they say? $50,000.
Uh-huh.
And, you'll have to ship it here to us, to Austria.
To Austria.
And then we can put it in for you.
Uh-huh.
And I go, oh, darn. So I'd heard about this guy that developed the player piano. His name is Wayne Stanky.
Right.
And he developed this system. Yeah, he developed this system for Bosendorfer and also for Yamaha. And I believe he worked on the one that they use on Steinway pianos now.
Oh, okay.
So I found his website. He listed the pianos that he had kits for, And so it said, if you're interested, fill out this web form. So put in my name and phone number. Not 2 minutes went by and the phone rings. Mm-hmm. Tim? Yes. It's Wayne Stanky. And so we started geeking out because he was an electrical engineer type geek as well. And, we both use similar technology in our design in field programmable gate arrays. Mm-hmm. And so we had a good time geeking out. And he said, well, if you want to put this on an Imperial, it'll work great. It'll sound fantastic. He said, but the only problem is I don't have anyone in Texas that could do this. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, the piano is not actually here. I've never even seen the piano. It's in Denver. And he said, oh, Denver, that's my best installer, Chris Finger.
Appropriately.
Chris Finger put the player in and rebuilt the piano, and it's awesome.
Right.
And now Farley calls it the Stanky Finger piano.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's appropriate.
And then his giant truck brought it to Texas, and
wow.
3 giant guys unloaded it. Mm-hmm. And there it is.
Man.
Beautiful.
Well,
but I got to say, I preferred playing the Yamaha. It just feels better.
It's a real personal thing, obviously. I played the first Bosendorfer I played was Oscar Peterson's.
That's easy for you to say.
And he had it, instead of delivered to Mississauga, Ontario, when he was getting it in 1981, he had it shipped to Kleinhans Music Hall in Buffalo. And I happened to be at that rehearsal, and that's when I met him and played for him. And he said, play something. And I walked up to the piano on the stage at Kleinhans, which has unbelievable acoustics. And I hit a middle C, and the same thing happened to me. The entire sound just came from my knees up through my stomach, right up through my chest. And I said, this is unbelievable, And of course that piano was customized for Oscar. It had the key dip that he wanted. It had, all that kind of stuff. And it just was, I said the same thing. Someday I want a Bosendorfer. Well, I haven't had a chance yet, but someday I'll have one. But I had speaking of Yamaha C series, late 80s, the first piano I bought as an adult was a Yamaha C5 that I loved playing that piano. It sounded great. It had a great feel. And that wound up selling that when I moved, when I started working mostly in New York. I sold it to Sculler's Jazz Club in Boston, and it was there for years, the house piano. But at Soundtrack, they had a C7 that was probably late 70s. That's why I asked what vintage yours was. And that was a beautiful, beautiful piano.
I played later ones that didn't quite have that action.
They don't anymore. And I found out why. Well, I have theories, and this is all speculation. And I'm sure if Yamaha wants to contact me, they will. But supposedly there was some sort of work stoppage or strike or something, or layoffs or something at Yamaha around 1990s, that a lot of their best technicians went to work for Kawai. And my other theory, because when I came to Vegas, now again, this is 99, so 25 years ago, 26 years ago, I went to the Vegas store that sold Yamahas and Steinway. And I sat down at a C7 and it felt horrible to me. It felt as if the keys were made out of balsa wood. It had, the action was so light. Then I found out, I mean, this is my theory now. This is where we get into, conspiracy theory shit. I think that they have made a conscious effort to lighten the action on all their pianos because kids do not learn to play on pianos anymore. They learn to play on keyboards.
It sounds totally plausible.
And I don't think that they ever develop like the muscles like that are, like in here, like this muscle.
Feel the burn.
They never get the chops. They and so, I mean, my dream pianos are a little heavier action, pre-CBS Steinways. There's some beautiful ones. And I mean, and again, I went to the Bosendorfer at NAMM. I went to their booth at NAMM 3 or 4 years in a row and didn't find one piano that was nice to play, and they were all, now they're $350,000. But, I mean, one had a remote control lid that came up by itself and stuff, but,
you gotta have that.
Yeah, but it played horribly. And, so but it's, the old ones. And I couldn't have afforded it at the time, but I remember again, back early days in Vegas, it wasn't Craigslist, it was something, but somebody was selling Marvin Hamlisch's Bosendorfer and they only wanted like 75 grand for it, and I think it was a couple of years before he passed away, but, I think he is dead, but, I have a 9-foot Kawai.
That's a great piano.
It's, and well, you haven't played it since it got a lot better.
Oh, really?
Yeah. During the pandemic, Don Menino, who was their worldwide chief technician, spent 2 days during the pandemic at my house redoing the whole piano. Wow. And it is unbelievable. It's really, really beautiful. And what I love about Kawai, and I mean, I'm not doing an ad for them, even though I'm a Kawai artist, is the consistency. If you play a 7-foot Kawai, like I play at the show every night, I go to the Green Mill in Chicago and I play that Kawai and it feels exactly the same, and that level, when I tell this story, and I probably even told it on this podcast, but I played their dealer dinner at NAMM one year, and it was early on in my relationship with them, maybe the first or second year. And what blew me away was everybody that got up to talk after I played, none of them mentioned sales. Every one of them got up and talked about how they could make the piano better. And I thought, this is a company that's really serious about making good pianos.
Oh, that's very encouraging. Wow.
And so I'm happy to play it and I love it. But we were in New York. I went down to the Steinway Hall, the new Steinway Hall, and played a B, and it was nothing special. And they're 250,000 now, 220,000.
Really?
I mean, it's gone insane.
How are the Steinway actions? I mean, everybody would worship those Renner actions back in the day.
Yeah, when my first album that I did, where we brought that recorder up from New York we did on a Falcone. And Falcone was this guy that started a piano factory. He bought the old Mason and Hamlin piano factory in Haverhill, Massachusetts. And he was using some of their technology, but he made his own piano, the Falcone, 9-foot grand. And the sound was amazing. And he was bragging about having his Renner action in it. And it was awful. You could never warm up to it. The Steinway that I played at Radio City, that's another funny thing. They had a 7-foot and a 9-foot. And they said, which one do you want? And I said, the 9-foot. And they said, are you sure you don't want the 7-foot? I said, no, I'd like the D. Are you sure you don't want the B? No, I would like the D. Well, the D's in the basement. No one's used it for a while. We got to go out and pull it up and have a tuner come in and retune it several times. I said, yeah, I want the D.
And they did that?
And they did it.
Wow.
And I think it's because they listed it on their equipment list or whatever the pre-show work was done. And I held them to it because...
And no blue M&Ms either.
No, exactly. And no, but I wanted it. I said for that size hall, and I'm the only music in the show. I wanted to have a low end, and I wanted to, to be. I first was a little nervous because I thought it's the same thing. You can't dig in. But after about a half an hour of playing it, I started to loosen it up, and it was great. But there's Steinways are so wildly varied. You can play the best piano you've ever played, and then the next one is a complete dog. And I don't know why, but anyhow, let's get on to something else because, we could talk about this for 3 or 4 more episodes.
Yeah, that's fun.
But so talk to me about yourself as a player, and when did you start playing and playing in bands and your child stuff? Was that just like everybody else, or?
Well, probably not. My parents didn't like television, and they wouldn't allow a television in the house. But we had radio.
Did you grow up in Topeka?
No, this is in central Iowa.
Oh, okay.
And so I listened to the radio a lot. And my mom, I really remember this as early memory. They brought home an old upright piano, put it in the basement. It was sort of a split level house, and these 4 or 5 guys got it wrestled down the stairs, and I'd bang on it. My mom was on the ironing board, and I started picking out some tunes, and I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And she was super impressed, and I remember that.
Right.
And then she said, we got to get you started taking piano lessons. So my showbiz mom got me into it.
No, it's exactly my story.
Really?
I was like 3.5, and my older brother, 5 years older than me, was taking lessons. And I guess I was crawling up and playing what he was playing after. And like I always say, I guess my parents thought, well, there's money to be had in this. Let's get him to lessons. But,
right.
So,
but my mom talked to the lady that played organ at the church. Was thinking about starting to give lessons, and my mom talked her into taking me on as her first student. And so I go over to her house once a week, and if I did well on my lesson, she would let me play the organ. And she had this thing called an Everett Orgatron, not to be confused with the Woody Allen Orgasmatron. That's a totally different thing.
Totally different.
An Everett Orgatron, which was an amplified reed organ. It sounded pretty amazing. And so she started, she would let me, and she'd kind of show me some organ basics, even though I wasn't studying organ.
Right.
And, and she had this cat named Elmer, and the cat would flap its tail in time to the music. It's crazy. Anyway, so that's how I got started. But then, I just bang around on it, and I really loved swing music. And I really wanted a player piano because I thought player pianos were the cat's meow. And I talked my dad into buying me this player piano. I was asked around, looked at the want ads, and there was a farmer out in the middle of nowhere that had a player piano that had been sitting there for decades without any attention. Obviously didn't work. But we hauled it in. I paid $35. My dad paid $35 for it. Wow. I still have it. It's a
no kidding
Hobart M cable piano. And slowly but surely, I tore the thing apart, figured out how to, what needed to be done, fixed it, and got it working. And it came with a pretty large cabinet full of rolls. People like Max Kortlander, who's on the staff at QRS, Piano Roll Company, Pete Wendling, James P. Johnson, J. Lawrence Cook, and Fats Waller.
Right.
And I just love this stride style.
Right.
Where you're going oompa, 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 ba-doom-pa, ba-doom-pa, ba-doom-pa. You're playing these wide,
Right.
what is
Yeah.
it, 13th in
Tenths
the
and
bass.
13ths. Yeah. Well,
And
no, I was just going to say it's astonishing because you're describing my childhood. I mean,
wow.
we had 2-player pianos in my house. We had an upright in the basement, a standard 88 note upright. And then after I started taking lessons, probably when I was 6 or 7, my dad bought a Aeolian Weber Duart
Oh, man.
reproducing grand.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
That's a whole
And-
different ballgame.
Yeah. But we had about 1,000 rolls. And I grew up listening to, Pete Wendling and Max Kortlander and J. Lawrence Cook. And I wound up eventually, not to brag, but I actually got to make many piano rolls.
You mentioned that. I was so jealous.
It was great, but to sit at the piano, the QRS marking piano, which is now in the Smithsonian, it had ivory keys and they were all like scalloped. They were all worn.
Oh, sure.
Because it had been played by so many thousands of musicians over the years. And so I'm like playing the same keyboard that Duke and Fats Waller and all these guys played, but you have to play slowly because it's just putting ink on a roll that they hand cut out for the master roll.
Yeah, there's a great YouTube video of, I think it's James P. Johnson is operating the piano and, marking the problems.
Bob Berkman, who ran QRS the last 40 years, 30 years, who became a dear friend of mine who passed away a couple of years ago. We would joke he would take me through the thing, and there was a couple of old ladies there cutting out the rolls. And he said, yeah, we pay him per roll. And he was joking, of course, but it was an amazing, but what you're saying is, I mean, this is what I did with it was a pump action in the basement, and it was of course electric. The Duart was, but I would sit down there for hours at 6, 7 years old, just playing, My Cuties Do It 222 Today. And Last Night on the Back Porch and Beat Me Daddy 8 to the Bar. And, and it was a huge revelation for me when I found out that they were like double tracking them.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't understand how there were more than 10 notes being played at once.
Right. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And, just the speed and the precision of it is inhuman,
Yeah.
But apparently Art Tatum had the same story.
Really?
Very, very much different ending than mine, but
I do.
He had a player piano and just wanted to play as good as those rolls.
Wow.
Not realizing that number one, that there were two people, and they were overdubbing on the player roll. And number two, he didn't have the speed set right. So he was playing a full blast, and the roll's just spinning through the machine. He's going, okay, I have to do that,
Wow.
And so Art Tatum, by the way, ended my jazz piano ambitions as
Many people.
Probably many musicians will say the same thing, or ex-musicians, because I really loved playing, and I got into after those people. I got into listening to Teddy Wilson and George Gershwin, Nat King Cole. I think is great.
Yep.
Earl Father Hines, Basie and Ellington. One day, I remember the day I bought a Art Tatum re-release, one of the Leonard Feather recordings. Mm-hmm. Tatum Solo Masterpieces, Volume 1.
Oh, yeah, the Norman Granz.
Yeah, and I brought it home. I bought it at Target. I took it home, put it on the turntable. I've heard about Art Tatum. Let's see what it's about. Oh, crap. There's no point in me even playing one more note on the piano. It was very disabling, very debilitating.
I agree 100%. And I think a lot of it has to do with at what point you hear him, because I heard him early. I heard him at 6 and 7 and 8 years old, and just thought, well, that's something else. I can't deal with that right now. And I'll just keep going until maybe someday. I mean, it's like, when I got to Berkeley, I thought, I had already won awards in Buffalo as the best piano player and the best keyboard player and all this shit. And I got to Berkeley and I heard, a half a dozen guys that blew me away. And so I said, well, okay, what do I have to do to get to that level to be serious? And so I just locked myself in a practice room 6 hours a day until I got competent enough. But I took it as a challenge. But had I heard Art Tatum when I was 12 and 13 and thought I was pretty good, I would say, well, this is stupid. You can't play this good. Nobody can. And I would probably have quit,
Right. It could have gone either way, but yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean, the stuff that he's doing, it took me to my mid 30s to really be able to parse a lot of it, So, the key changes, the harmonic stuff, it's so fast. And I mean, Dave McKenna told me, I love Nat Cole. I love Oscar. He said, I listen to Art Tatum and after 2 songs, I just have to turn it off. It's overload.
Yeah, it does overload you. And, that's the criticism that you hear about Art Tatum. It's too much. Yeah. And I think maybe it was Duke Ellington that said, I know what he's doing, but it's just so fast,
Right.
It's unbelievable.
There's an argument to be made, but the fact is, what you're hearing is what he's hearing. If we're not up to the task of listening to what's in his head, you know what I mean? I don't think it's fair to criticize. I mean, it's the same thing people criticize Oscar, too much technique. He's hearing these, these long lines over the bar line of 30-second notes. That's what he's hearing. It's Picasso's painting the way he's seeing. You know what I mean? You can't pull the too many notes, Mozart criticism. You know what I mean?
Well, Rachmaninoff is maybe the best example of super virtuosic piano composing.
Yes. But I mean, it just seems like you have to take it for what it is, but I have to take it in smaller doses than I do, Basie.
Yeah.
But, well, what'd you go to college for? Electrical engineering?
Physics. Because my dad was an engineer. I was super into electronics.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and my guidance counselor said, you got to study physics. And I said, well, what I really want to study is electronic music. You've heard of synthesizers?
Hey.
No, but you should go into something that you could make money at.
Sure.
And I did that, and it was a mistake. And I spent all my time, playing pinball and reading as much as I could find about electronic music. And then I was playing piano in a bar for extra cash.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody offered me a job with a rock band. So that changed the course. And I went off and did that for a few years.
Was it like on the road originals or cover band?
Yeah, a lot of originals. The leader of the band was a songwriter, and that made it very interesting. And we recorded quite a bit. You've never heard of this group, but after we were riding in an old school bus, from gig to gig, and it's like when you're a young adolescent, you look at the Beatles and you go, that looks like a good job.
Sure.
I'll do that.
Right.
And then one day after about 5 years, that's about enough of that. And strangely enough, what really sealed it for me was I ran across this book at the bookstore. It was called Star Maker Machinery. And it was about the music industry and how extremely unlikely it is for you to ever make a penny in the recording industry because of the structure of the industry. Basically a bunch of not nice guys who like to rip people off. And you spent your whole career trying to pay back what you owed the record company, and maybe just 20 or so superstars that actually got paid big checks, And that's kind of, opened my eyes. You go, I'm kind of spinning my wheels here. For a while, I managed a music store and learned a lot about synthesizers there because they were starting to show up in music stores, how to repair them. built a few music synthesizers, built one of the first computer-controlled music synthesizers, where I could put in, like switched on Bach was
Right.
it just blew me away. So I would program this thing to do Bach 4-part contraptions, as Peter Schickley would call them.
Sure. Yes.
So after a while there, I go, there's got to be a way to make more money at this. And if I could design stuff that people would want to buy, that would probably work. So I started New Tech and started making video production equipment, which also had an audio side of it. So I was never far from that.
Oh, and that was like mid 80s, right? 85?
Yeah, in the late 80s, yep.
Wow.
But switching on Bach, I think, changed a lot of people's heads. Walter Carlos, Wendy Carlos.
Yeah, I got to meet Wendy Carlos because she lives 2 floors above Hank O'Neill, who owned Chiaroscuro Records at 838 Broadway. Soundtrack's 936. But and it was quite a thrill, because that was everywhere when I was growing up. I mean, I think it came out in like the early 70s.
69 maybe.
Oh, really? I thought 71, but
it might have been 70. Yeah,
but,
it was a shockwave.
Yeah, it really was.
To the world.
Yeah.
I loved Bach without really realizing it before that, because I went to a Lutheran church and the organist there loved to play Bach, being the Lutheran organ music composer.
Yeah.
And so there's something about Bach.
Yeah, he seemed to know what he was doing.
He also one of the first piano players. He famously, when he was he died in 1750. So since 1747, I think, he went to visit Frederick II, King of Prussia, who was trying to get him to come and visit, because Frederick was a flautist. As well as being a militaristic warmonger. He loved to play the flute and loved, everything about music. And he somehow, friend of a friend, got Bach to come for a visit, even though Bach was an old man at the time. They called him Old Bach. And Bach shows up. And of course, there's no pianos at that time. It's clavichords and harpsichords.
Yeah, harpsichords, yeah.
But Frederick had a whole bunch of pianos, brand new thing made by Silbermann. And he's dragging Bach around the castle saying, okay, try this one. And Bach's going, wow, this is pretty amazing. These pianos suck, but I can see how they could be better.
Right.
And, he started giving him feedback on how to fix it. But Frederick at the time says, okay, so I've got this little theme in mind, and I'd like to see you improvise on it. And this is on a piano now. And he goes, here it is. And he whips out his flute, I think, and he says, da ta 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 ta. And Bach goes, oh, okay. And immediately, Philip said, Frederick says, I'd love to hear you improvise on 6 parts, and the fugue form is where you take this theme and then you repeat it. You come in a little later, maybe at a different key.
Yep.
And then you come in a little bit later with another layer that starts the same, and they all blend together. It's very mathematical. And Bach does this. He says, I can't really do 6 parts. I'm sorry, but I can do 4 parts for you. He plays it on this piano. And Frederick is blown away. And then he gives him another theme, and then Bach feels real bad after he goes back home, and he composes a 6-part version of that theme that Frederick gave him. And it's called the 6-part Ricercare. And some people have called it the pinnacle of Western music.
Yes.
And it's a little boring in the middle, but it resolves at the end, and it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And he writes Frederick this letter. Oh, most humble, I'm your humble servant, and I'm so sorry that I could not produce a 6-part piece for you on your theme, but here it is.
But here it is. Yeah.
Sent a whole bunch of other ones too.
Wow.
Anyway, so that was his response to the piano, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, to flash forward to more recent things, I'm not even going to delve into the movie because that's another whole episode. I'd love to have you back, have you talk about Tim's Vermeer, and have you talk about, the relationship between music and art that you think about, and all those kind of heavy duty topics. But we really just scratched the surface, and I've kept you for an hour already.
Really, has it?
Yeah.
Flies.
But besides running an animal preserve now, we've got the studio. Is it almost complete, or is it?
It's a process. Mm-hmm. Let's see. How long did it take them to build the pyramids?
Yeah. Well, the one here in Vegas, I think they did in about 4 years.
Well, yeah, and I think the Great Pyramid of Giza was only like 10 years.
Wow.
Believe it or not. So I'm shooting for 10 years, but
wow.
I've been at it for 2 or 3 years now. Mm-hmm. And it's, I should have started from scratch and just built a custom building, but I decided to, there was this old restaurant for sale, real cheap, just down the road from me. And it's right on a lake, and you're looking out these giant picture windows onto the lake. Giant picture windows, like 10 by 10 feet.
Wow.
And they're huge. And basically a dumb idea in a recording studio, because sound goes through the glass and bounces off the glass. And so I spent a lot of time and effort soundproofing it. So I had to buy another pane of 10 by 10 foot glass of a different thickness and put on the outside of it. Mm-hmm. And then I had to build a building within a building,
Right.
Another set of walls. Everything has to be sealed and caulked with this acoustic caulk. Anyway, that's almost done. Mm-hmm. Then we got to the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Right.
And of course, you can't have any sound in a recording studio. And normally when the air conditioner comes on, it goes shh.
Yeah. Right. Sure.
And that you can't have that. Or you'll hear a rumble, or you'll hear the motor running or whatever. So I had this idea that you could use mini splits, which are these modern air conditioners. You see them in hotels and stuff. There's a unit high on the wall.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's another unit outside, and it looks like a big box fan.
Yeah.
And so I worked on that plan. I sent it to my acoustic consultant, and he said, it doesn't look like this will meet the NC25 spec. NC25 is like their standard for silence in a room. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be like NC35 or 40 or something. You don't want that. Okay. So I found a firm to design the ducts for, that would meet the spec and be super silent, which involves like moving the air really slowly and long tubes with insulation in them to keep the sound.
Oh my God.
So, and the bids came in for these ducts, and it was like twice what the building was worth.
Right. You had told me at the party. It was like
the heck with that.
$250,000 or something.
Yeah. And so now I'm back to mini splits. And I asked our new robot overlord Oracle if he could think of a solution, ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. Said, okay, there's one mini split that will do the job. And here it is. And I started checking into it. He's right.
Wow.
And I talked to my acoustic consultant, and he said, yeah, probably work. So that's what we're doing right now. We've got one unit in that we're testing, and looks like it's all going to work. So
great.
We may actually start moving equipment in and recording in the next month or two.
Wow. So that was my next question. Yeah. When do you think you'll start like booking acts?
Yeah, maybe. And Todd Rundgren came out to look at it. I've known Todd for years. Mm-hmm. And I told him the whole concept that it's all this vacuum tube gear and all this
Yeah.
highly collectible old recording equipment. He said, "What are you going to record? A bunch of old jazz guys?" I said, "Yeah, whoever shows up."
Sure.
So it's an acquired taste, and recording studios are not exactly thriving. Most of them.
No, I agree, but this is different enough, I think, that it will offer the people that can afford it and would like it that option. You know what I mean?
It's negotiable. Affordability is negotiable.
But also,
I'm doing it for fun more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's a retirement hobby. No, I mean, and as being around recording studios for years, everyone has its own personality. And, if you get, I mean, the thing about Van Gelder's place is it's got a great feel to it. And, some of it's brought by the reputation and everything, but it's the same thing. If you sit on stage at the Village Vanguard, you've got a feel that you don't get at the Holiday Inn, And so, you create that kind of space that people want to be in. And, I'm sure it'll be a place to go.
I hope so. Yeah, my studio consultant walked in the building and looked out the windows at the lake, and he said, "Wow, this has a vibe."
Yeah, well, that's what the kids call it, a vibe.
Yeah, those kids.
Well, at that, I'm going to let you go for now. But if we can do it again, there's a lot more stuff to talk about because
sounds
we've only discussed one small aspect of your incredible career, and it's so much fun talking with you, and I've loved every second of it.
Same to you, Jonesy.
If you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you did, tell everybody you know. Tell people on the street. Just stop them and say thestereoimage.com. We're trying to spread it around like COVID. Remember COVID? That was fun, wasn't it? Please, if you have a chance, join our monthly email list over at thestereoimage.com and follow us on Instagram or Threads at the.stereo.image.